it's Michaela, and you're watching FunsizedStyle. You can already tell by the title, if you've been following this specific journey, what this video is about, and I can't help but just be filled with so much joy and being able to film this and share this with you, because I know that so many of you have been cheering me on and praying for me and giving me tips and just all the things, and I can't thank you guys enough for just giving me hope, just giving me reminders that God will work everything out and provide all that I need. And I know that I share these things with you guys, but I think when we're in the thick, a really difficult or really frustrating time, it's so good for even those of us like me to be reminded of that. And life is messy and it's complicated and it's difficult, and then there's these moments where God just shows up like always and provides all our needs, even when there seems to be no way. He makes a way for us, and I just could not be more excited to share today's video and this news and what's next and all the things. So if you've been following, I have been having quite the battle trying to get a bone-anchored hearing aid approved by my health insurance, and my specific health insurance, I guess, circumstances are really complicated, and I pay for my own health insurance, and I think that everyone should if they are able. And I just think that that's my own personal belief. Of course, all opinions are welcome here, but that's just my own personal belief. And so that's not my problem with the complexity of our health insurance world here in the U.S. My problem is that if I'm going to pay for a health insurance policy, I should be able to get the things that I medically need and that are medically necessary. And in order to get those things, I should not have to fight tooth and nail every single time. And yet God showed up, and yes, He gave me this miracle, and He made a way when literally there was no way. And when I say there is no way, I'll get into that more in a minute. But it doesn't mean that our system shouldn't still be improved, and that doesn't mean that our system isn't still broken. It is still incredibly complicated and so beyond, I don't want to say beyond repair, but that's what it feels like, because it's been so bad for so many years now, and I don't have the answer. Healthcare and health insurance is not one size fits all. It should never be one size fits all. I fear that we are going down a path of healthcare one size fits all, and that is extremely dangerous. That's not what today's video is about. And so I recognize those differences and how incredibly complex it is. And when I sit here and I share how complicated it is for me to navigate the system, it's been like this for many, many years. Getting healthcare when you are an adult is a lot different and a lot more complicated than when you are 18 or younger. Anyway, again, a whole nother topic. But when I sit here and I share how complicated it is for me, this isn't me saying I have all the answers. This isn't me sharing my solution on how to fix the problem. I don't have the solution. I feel bad. Well, I shouldn't say I feel bad, because I don't, because it's not my fault. But I sit here and I complain about it, and I think that when something needs to be addressed, it should be our job as people of a society to be part of the solution. And because healthcare and health insurance is not one size fits all, how do we create a system like that in reverse it is now, and create, I guess, a system where it isn't so complicated, that does fit those different needs and different lifestyles? It is complicated, and I realize, obviously, people that are medically complex from the day they were born, obviously we know the system like the back of our hand, and most people don't rely on the health insurance companies in the healthcare system as much as most people. And so, yeah, it's just a very complicated system. And so when I sit here and I share how frustrated I am and how complicated it is, I want to also follow up with, but here's what I think should be done. and I don't have those answers. And so I feel like I almost don't have a right to complain, because even though I'm being affected, I don't know how to fix it. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out before I get into this, that I'm very well aware of these things. I really don't know what my point was there, but it was something that I felt that I wanted to share. I guess what really brought that up was, yes, God showed up and he made a way when there was no way, but as I mentioned in the beginning, like, that doesn't mean that our system still isn't broken, and that it's still really, really complicated, and it shouldn't be this complicated. Even though I'm able to get, in the end, what I need, it shouldn't have to be this way. And so I never want people to forget that just because I'm able to get the things that I need, I shouldn't have to go through the things that I do and have in order to make that possible, if that makes sense. Okay. Enough of the insurance problem. Well, we are talking about my insurance, the worldly problem. I want to talk about the good stuff of today's video and why you guys are here. So as you can tell by the title, my bone anchored hearing device and surgery was approved by my health insurance, and it was a battle. And so the last that I updated you guys on was that my surgeon, so if you missed that last video, I encourage you to go watch it, because there's a lot of detail in there that won't be in this video. But what I will share is basically my surgeon, like I was telling her about, her and I had both, like, they sent both of us a notice of denial of the authorization, and so she was like, I will file this appeal on your behalf, like, we will help you be able to get this. And because, like, she knows, especially with hearing devices, insurances are, like, everything can be complicated when you need something more specialized with health insurance, obviously. But so there's something about hearing devices and anything related to the ability to hear that is extra bad. She explained it to me, and like why insurance companies like particularly hate hearing devices and surgery so much, but they're just one of the most difficult things to get approved by insurances if they are not covered in the plan. Like I said, she explained it to me. It's just one of the most difficult things to get approved by the insurance if it's not specifically covered in the plan. And sometimes even if it is, insurance is like, for some reason, surgeries, it's just one of insurance companies' least liked things, if that makes sense. So she explained it to me, but all above my head, so I'm not going to try to sit here and explain it. So she volunteered, well, obviously not volunteered, like she's a doctor and she gets paid for what she does, but she gave me the opportunity for them to basically take the appeal headache and nonsense out of my hands. And they know, obviously, because I mentioned that hearing devices and surgeries are like one of the most difficult things to get approved by insurances, at least that's what they told me. Like, they wanted to help me because they know how difficult this specific issue is to get approved. And I was like, be my guest, because the reason for denial was that it was not a covered benefit. And so because of that, I could provide all of the medical reasons as to why I need it, and the fact that I can't wear a traditional hearing aid, but I didn't know what leg I had to stand on, being that it wasn't a covered benefit. So as soon as I got the denial, I'm like, what am I going to say? Like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to file this appeal? Because, like, I barely understand the system, and here I am, like, one of insurance companies' least liked issues being denied, and now I have to fight it. So when they offered to take that burden from me, I was like, be my guest. Though I knew that it was still going to be a fight, I knew that, like, that alone was still such a huge burden that was lifted from me, and I'm just so grateful for them, my team, for really going to bat for me. Like, my surgeon dedicated a lot of time fighting these people and making cases and sending documents and the peer-to-peer review, which I'll get into. And so they really went to bat for me, and that's part of what I think is so important to you, to like make sure you have a team that cares about you, like, as a person, and is willing to go to bat for you. Because if you have a team of doctors that you need things approved by insurance from, obviously, and then you're faced with potential denials, if you don't have a team that is willing to fight for you or go to bat for you or help you navigate the system or isn't good at follow-up, then it's time to find someone else, because there are people like mine that do care, and I'm really, really grateful. And I will link my hearing loss playlist in the iCard here, but I didn't have that for so long when it came to my hearing loss issues, and I was dismissed by so many doctors, which is what caused me to lose my hearing. And yeah, that's, we're not going into that for the 18th time. You can go watch that video. So just make sure that you also have a team that's willing to fight for you, because sometimes you're not going to be able to fight these battles on your own. You need them to help back you up. They did that for me, and I know that that was such a huge part as to why that this got approved, because they're used to this. They know that insurance companies don't like hearing related issues, and so devices and hearing related surgeries, and so they deal with that every single day. I recognize that privilege of having a team that was willing to fight for me and help me get this, but again, know that I didn't have that for a long time, which is why I lost my hearing. And so I know what it's like to not have people have your back and not have a healthcare team have your back and really have your best interest in mind, like as a whole. Like, I shouldn't say they didn't have my best interest in mind, but like they were just looking at the certain things. And so anyway, it's just really great. And like the biggest, obviously, like God's hand was in it all, but this was the second biggest component as to why this got approved. That is my biggest advice, is have a team that is willing to fight these insurance battles with you, because don't always ask them like, hey, can you help me with this? Like, that might be a little weird, but like they just oftentimes, like, these really good teams will offer that, and they'll offer advice and their assistance. And like I didn't even ask them like, hey, can you help me with this appeal? Like, I had to call them and like, because I like documents and things like that. And then that's when they offered to take over. So I was like, be my guest. But it's also really sad too that the system is the way that it is, because it takes away time from my doctor being a doctor. Like, she had to do these peer-to-peer reviews for me and take time to send these documents, and I know that that's all part of the system, and I know that they know that, but it's still just really sad. They are just the best, and I'm just forever in debt to them. I filmed the video about my denial, about the denial a month ago. It took exactly 1 month later for them to approve it, and so this has been an incredibly still long battle. Like, even though it got approved, it took an incredibly long time. I've been dealing with it every day. Even though my surgeons, like, she did the appeal for me, like, I still had to follow up with insurance and call them and really like nag them, keep things moving. I made like over 30 phone calls as well for this process, and so sent dozens of messages. So it wasn't like I did nothing. Like, I had to put a lot of work into this too, and I had to fight a lot too. So there was multiple people involved in this, myself included. So the first week of August, she had the peer-to-peer review for my bone-anchored hearing aid. So basically a peer-to-peer review, my understanding is like he did a phone conference with a like random doctor from this panel from my health insurance, and like she presents my case and like why I need this device and surgery, and like why I can't wear a traditional hearing aid, and all the medical reasons as to why I need this device and the surgery. I actually heard back from her like that day or that night, and she said that they actually upheld their denial. Like, after the peer-to-peer review, they still said, no, we're not going to cover this. Basically, yeah, nothing came of that meeting, of that review, and so then the next step was to file a formal written appeal. So basically, like, sending in this letter and like all these documents. That process took like 30 days. It was almost 30 days. It can take up to 30 days. It doesn't necessarily have to take 30 days. And so it was like nearing the 30 days. And so I called my insurance company to get an update. And then this is where crap really hits the fan. And I'm like losing my mind, because they were like, oh, like, we never got, like, somehow so complicated, because every person you talk to at an insurance company will give you a different answer for the same reason that you called. It is so messed up. Well, the day that I called, this lady randomly told me like, oh, like, we don't even have a record. And a formal appeal was filed or that a letter was sent in. Like, the last thing that we have is that a peer-to-peer review was done, like, last week, and like, however many weeks ago it was, and the denial was upheld. Like, we don't have any record of a written appeal. Well, I have confirmation from my physician that said, my provider, that says that they did, and sent me a confirmation of this, like, and all the things. And so I was like, I don't know, but like, we need to find this, because obviously, like, you know, I only have a certain amount of days, and then I can't file an appeal anymore. I called my surgeon back, and surgeon office back, and they like resent the appeal. Because I was like, they're telling me that it's lost. I don't think it's lost, because I know that you guys sent it in. So I don't know what's going on. Like, there was a point where like, nobody knew where my file was, or like, what the status of this appeal was. Like, it was totally lost. And this is where it get really weird, because it was almost like a blur. Like, I don't know, like several days later, like nearing the weekend, of course, like everything bad happens near the weekend. I don't even know like what the status was. Oh, and then I called, and this is what's really interesting. They said like, whatever letter, this is what happened. So they resent it, whatever. And then I called the insurance company back to follow up, and they said whatever letter that you sent, or like whatever was sent was not sufficient enough. Like, whatever was sent by your provider was not sufficient enough. Like, there's an entirely separate appeal process that you have to go to for this level of appeal that you're at now, and whatever your provider sends is not sufficient, so basically you have to start over. And I'm like losing my mind. They transferred me to this lady who was really mean, and you could just tell she absolutely hated her job. And I'm like trying my darndest to like uphold the most level of kindness, because it's not nice. I'll put your file at the bottom of the pile and not want to deal with you. And so obviously I didn't want to be that person, and so I'm like trying to talk to this lady who's really mean and doesn't understand my situation, and was like, I'm not the person you're supposed to talk to for this issue. I don't know why you're calling me. And I'm like, ma'am, like, I just got transferred to you. I'm sorry, like, I'm just trying to get this sorted out. And she was really mean, so there was no help. And so then I called my provider's office back, and I said, look, they're telling me whatever you guys sent now is not sufficient, and we have to start over, and I don't know what that means. And there's a whole different level of appeal process that we have to go through. I don't know what that means. I'm totally lost. Oh, and then there was another thing that happened. I'm telling you guys, this is crazy. So then they said that I need to talk to the care management team to figure out this next level of appeal. So then they transferred me to the care management team. Well, never mind, patients aren't allowed to speak to the care management department, only providers can. So that's when I called my provider's office back and said, look, they're telling me I have to talk to care management, but patients aren't allowed to talk to care management, and blah, blah, blah. My provider's office was like, don't worry about it, like, we'll take care of it. Absolutely crazy, like, I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. And I'm like, it's okay. So then they got in contact with the prior authorization team at my hospital so that they could handle it, because it was basically in their hands now. And this is where God totally shows up, and I experienced this crazy realm of emotion. I went from like hitting rock bottom of frustration of thinking that we have to start over, and it's been over a month, and now we have to a whole different level of appeal process that could take over another. They transferred me to the prior authorization team from the hospital, and she was like, I explained the whole thing, because the lady was like, oh, like, she'll call you in a few days or something, and it's like the day before Labor Day, and I'm like, nobody has as much invested interest in this as I do. Like, I'm not gonna wait for her to call, because 9 times out of 10 when somebody says they're gonna call you, they don't. You always have to be the one to follow up. So I'm like, I'm not waiting until next week. I'm calling her myself. So I called her, they gave me her number, and I explained the whole situation. The prior authorization team at my hospital, I explained the whole situation, and this is where God totally shows up. I never experienced this level of emotion. That's really odd, because I'm looking at a letter here that was actually just sent by your health insurance 20 minutes ago before you called, and it says here that it was approved, that the benefit was approved. And I was like, what? Like, I just got off the phone with them, and they said whatever was sent was not sufficient, and that we have to go through this whole level of appeal and all the different things. So like, whoever told you that information totally misunderstood what you were saying or asking, because like I said, I'm looking at a letter right here that says it was approved, and like she gave me the code number that was like approved and everything, and this was the day before Labor Day weekend. And she was like, I'm gonna call your insurance company, because honestly I'm really, really surprised that it was approved because being that it was not a covered benefit. And I was like, oh my gosh, no way. And she was like, yes. So I was like thanking her and everything. I was like a crazy woman at this point. Like, I was like, are you serious? Like, I was so just like over the moon. And so then, I know this is like, I'm trying to talk fast because there's just a lot. And I know you guys are like, alright, come on. But I like sharing all the details. I hang up on her and I'm like, well, I can't count on her to like call the insurance company. She's like, I'll call them next week because it'll probably be hard to get them on the phone being that it's almost Labor Day. So I called the insurance company back myself. And I was like, hi, like I just heard from my provider that approved, and I was just calling to confirm because we were both really surprised, to be honest, because being that it wasn't a covered benefit. And so she was like, let me look into that for you. And you know, they put you on hold and all that stuff. She came back and she said, yes, CPT code blah 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 was approved and you are all set. Go ahead and have this procedure done. And I was shaking. I was so excited. Like, that was God all the way, because I went from like rock bottom frustration thinking that I had to start over to up emotion, like so happy, so excited that I got approved. Like, and that conversation of like having to start the approval over and then hearing that it was approved was in one day. So like, that was just crazy. Like, the emotions were wild. And so yeah, so that's how it all happened. That's how the approval process happened. And so I called my provider's office back and was like, I just got confirmation from my insurance company that it is indeed approved and we can schedule surgery. And so it was Friday, so I knew I wasn't going to hear back from them that day. But they were like, okay, that's awesome. Like, we'll go ahead and forward them the message. Monday I heard back from them and we are in the process of scheduling the surgery. So I know, like, with the video of denial and everything, it's kind of confusing. I mentioned the bone anchored hearing aid situation a little bit, but now I'm going to backtrack, not in this video, but going to be doing other videos on like how we got to this point of like deciding that I need a bone anchored hearing aid, because I'll link this video, but this one, I always forget what side. This was the video like I kind of hinted to you guys that we were moving in that direction because of pain of like wearing my traditional hearing aid. I never talked about like why specifically I'm getting a bone anchored hearing aid and like a specific model of bone anchored hearing aid that I'm getting, how we chose one that we did, and kind of like what brought me to this decision. I wanted to talk about the denial and everything kind of like in the moment because it was just a really important part of the process that I wanted to share before I make a video about how and why I got it, because I didn't want to make a video being like, surprise, I got a bone anchored hearing aid, because I knew that this would be a whole process. And so I wanted to bring you every step of the process, a complete miracle that it got approved. Like, you could just tell by the insurance team at my hospital, like, her voice, like, she was just really surprised that, again, it was not a covered benefit. It was one of the first times that my civic insurance plan has ever covered one of these things. It's also really amazing, too, because the plan does cover hearing aids, but only up to, like, $600, and hearing aids are more than $600. They essentially really don't even cover hearing aids, and yet still able to get this really expensive surgery and this really expensive device covered, and that is just an absolute miracle. And I hope that no matter what battle you are fighting with your insurance, that just keep going and that God will provide for your every need. I could not be more excited because I feel like this is my opportunity to take back what was taken when other doctors told me that I would be okay and my risk of hearing loss was low. Now it's almost completely gone in my right ear, and so I just feel like after years and years of deteriorating hearing loss, this is my opportunity, this device, to take back what was taken from me. And I'm just so grateful, and this is totally going to change my life. It's just such a gift, and I am just so excited to get this device. I have never been so excited for surgery before, and just don't have words, really. Very, very excited. That's basically it for this video. I know, kind of talking about the appeal process, I talked kind of fast, but I knew there was so many details that I wanted to share, and I knew this video was already going to be long, but I hope you guys enjoyed fighting for whatever you need and take on every level and just know that God will provide for all that you need. And I'm just so excited. I didn't mention this either, but I don't have a surgery date yet. We're working on that, but I will share the date soon. So excited. I just, like, it's really, when it comes to exciting things, I'm the most impatient person you'll ever meet, but it's because I have so much enthusiasm and I'm so excited. Like, I'm going to receive the gift of sound, and that's the greatest gift that I ever receive, and I'm just so excited. Okay, anyways, I just wanted to share this news with you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. I'm so excited.